Hello, everybody. I'm Deb Coviello, and welcome to the Drop In CEO Live Talk Media, where I have the pleasure of bringing forth some amazing people. Shout out to Christine Spira, who has introduced me to Moshe Cohen. Moshe, welcome to the conversation today on the Drop In CEO Live Talk.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
You know, your book, Collywobbles, How to Negotiate When Negotiating Makes You Nervous. Very, very intriguing. And it got me to thinking, so often when I work with CEOs and companies, this is a skill that is not often developed in either our leaders as well as individuals in an organization. And I find the topic is so helpful, so relevant, because sometimes when we have to negotiate and we don't have the skills and tools, we find ourselves lost. So I would just love for you to kind of introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us more about yourself, what you do, and how you help people in negotiation.
Great. Well, thank you. So I've been teaching negotiation now for over 25 years. I've been teaching it through my own practice, the negotiating table, and where I teach mostly in companies and organizations, and I work also with individuals. But I also been teaching at Boston University's Western School of Business. I'm a senior lecturer there. I've been there for over 20 years. Um, Prior to that, I was actually in physics and engineering. And it was an interesting transition into the business world and then into the world of negotiation. And what I find is that people negotiate all the time. Right? It's they don't even have a choice. Negotiations happen anytime that you and someone else need to make a decision, and you don't start off in the same place. So some negotiations are formal, some are informal, some are with outside parties like customers or vendors. Many are with your colleagues. So people negotiate all the time, and most people don't get any training at it. They just kind of pick it up, as they go along. And a lot of people have a lot of anxiety about it, especially when the negotiations get personal. So what I do is I help people with their negotiations. I help them by teaching. I also do some coaching and I mediate. Trying to help people overcome some of the barriers they have and improve their skills so they can negotiate more effectively.
So let's unpack that a little bit because I will tell you, I have a hard time negotiating, and I can from within think about confidence, outcomes, risks. But for you, if you could unpack that a little bit, what are some of the leading reasons why people fail to, don't do it well?
So, I talk to a lot of people who tell me that they think of themselves as bad negotiators. And my experience is that most of them actually aren't bad negotiators. They have the skills, but something else gets in the way. And the thing that probably gets in the way the most is their emotions. There are a lot of triggering events when we negotiate with someone else. They ask us a question we don't know how to answer, or they make us an offer and now we have to decide what to do about it. They challenge us in various ways. Sometimes the other person isn't doing something, it's just the circumstance. So all these triggering events cause us to go into emotional overload. And once we're emotionally overloaded, a lot of times we can't use the skills we have. So the question I look at is, how do we upgrade people's skills? But more than that, how do we tackle some of those things that get in the way so they can actually use the skills they have?
So I'd love for you to maybe share an example where either the book itself or the work that you've done with people, you've been able to help somebody find what one of those limiting beliefs or skills that you help them to get through in order to be able to be more successful in negotiating.
So, one of the things that people bring into negotiations is a lot of fear. And you can think of fear in negotiations along three dimensions. People are worried about some tangible hurt, some relationship damage, and some emotional pain. On the tangible hurt example, for instance, if I want to negotiate for a raise for my boss, and I'm thinking about doing that, I'm afraid that if I try to negotiate for a raise, I might get punished in some way. I might get inferior assignments, or I might even get fired. On the relationship level, I'm worried that even if my boss does give me the raise, now my boss will resent me, and now for the future, I'll be kind of on the boss's bad list. And emotional hurt, when you negotiate, invariably you get some rejection, and some people are so hurt by that rejection that then become fearful about negotiating again. So The cornerstone of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. And one of the things that I do a lot in the book is increase people's self-awareness about what they bring into the negotiation. Many people bring into their negotiations a fear of conflict or fear of uncertainty or a narrative in which they place themselves at a power disadvantage compared to the other person they're negotiating with. A lot of that is under your control if you can first be aware of it.
That's huge. Self-awareness, what can you control? And then be able to peel that apart and it's like, well, what do I bring to the table? The confidence. That's powerful stuff, but so people are not ready to even take that first step. It sounds so logical.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, when I'm working with someone, especially when I'm coaching them, and I see them reluctant to negotiate because it's not even about skills. A lot of times people won't even take that first step of engaging in the negotiation.
Mhm.
I ask them what's holding them back. And usually they say, they tell me what they're afraid of. And I ask them, what are you telling yourself, about the other party, about the situation? And once they start unpacking their narratives, they see that it's not the only narrative possible. So, for instance, I might be afraid of negotiating, for my job because I think, oh, I'm a dime a dozen. They could replace me easily. But that's only one possible narrative. As if you've worked with people who have been bosses, that's not the case. Employees are not that easy to replace. Good employees are even harder to replace. Employees with knowledge of your organization that you don't have to bring up the learning curve are very hard to replace. So while we tend to put ourselves at a power disadvantage, we neglect to think that the other person has a dynamic on their side of the table too. So by thinking through those narratives, help people rewrite those narratives and get into a position where they can be more empowered in advocating for themselves while they negotiate.
I really appreciate what you share there. It triggers a couple stories or thoughts that I have of my own. I remember 15 years ago or so, I went in to negotiate for a raise and a title change. It was a startup optical networking company. I was nervous, but I wanted to state my position. So, what I did was I wrote my talking points down on a 3x5 index card when we still use index cards, and I delivered my position. And they actually came back and said to me, so often we advocate or negotiate for people on our team or others and fail to bring ourselves forward and negotiate for ourselves. The fact that I had the courage and I did that, he found that as strength. And I actually got the raise and promotion.
Oh, yeah.
And so, what I propose to people again, confidence, fear, risk, consequences, maybe what holds you back. I try to put this in the context, and I think you do this as well, as well, what if you succeed? What does that look like? What are the possibilities if you actually win or not win, reach an agreement with the negotiating skills that they develop?
So I strongly believe that optimism is a choice, and that by thinking positive, you get positive things. I'm one of those people that always seems to find parking because I always believe I'm going to find parking. And I think part of that is true in negotiations. You have to at least try. And the book addresses people who can negotiate for their boss but can't negotiate with their boss. Once things get personal, it becomes a lot harder for us to advocate for ourselves. I know people who are fierce negotiators on behalf of their direct reports but can't negotiate for themselves. And what's in the way is all of those fears and anxieties.
So, you're an expert in this field. You guide others through this journey and help develop the skills that they need and mindset to be able to successfully negotiate. But I'm curious if there was a point in your career where you too were nervous about negotiation, but you found the skills, you developed, and you were able to do it successfully on your own. What was that like?
So this actually makes me smile because I think there's two kinds of people that write books about negotiation. One kind of person that writes books about negotiation is the expert for whom negotiations are easy. And they say, I'm an expert at this. Let me tell you what I do, and you can do it too. And my concern is that very often other people can't do it too because it's those personality traits that makes the expert that are really what's driving the success. I actually came from it from a very different angle. I was an introvert. I was shy. I was not that confident. When I took my first negotiation class in business school, I took it because I thought of myself as a bad negotiator and very quickly discovered that I wasn't, but I had never had the confidence to do it. And my take on this is, I've struggled with negotiations my whole life. I still do sometimes. And I've learned a few things along the way. Let me share with you what's helped me, and maybe it can help you as well. I still get nervous when I negotiate, and I think a certain amount of nervousness is good. It keeps you on your toes. Right? It makes you prepare better. If you're not nervous, you can get cocky and come into negotiations unprepared. So I think a certain amount of nervousness is valuable. I run a business. I negotiate with customers. I negotiate with other partners, and negotiations involve uncertainty. You never know at the beginning how it's going to end, and there's always a certain amount of nervousness associated with it. I think with experience, you realize that some go better, some go worse. You win some, you lose some. Overall, you end up okay. And I think that's what builds up your confidence. And the lesson there is just go do it and start learning, because it's really difficult to do it. But if you don't do it, you won't develop the confidence. I'm not much of a skier, but I've heard that in skiing, you only learn how to ski well once you've fallen down enough times. And then you realize that falling down's okay. There are some negotiations that will go terribly for you, and that's okay. You will survive them and you will learn from them. And the next time around, you'll be a better negotiator.
And that's what I call success in the making. Not failures, but success in the making. You have to experiment. So, this has been an amazing conversation. I know people are going to want to learn more about your work, the book, Holly Wobbles How to Negotiate When Negotiating Makes You Nervous. But how can people connect with you, learn more so they can work with you? And if we have any more time, what is an actionable tip somebody can do today to start evolving their ability to negotiate and then probably connect with you to really evolve their craft?
So let me start with the tip. Um, Silence is your friend when you're negotiating. And one of the things that distinguishes good negotiators is their ability to ask questions and then listen in silence. So if that's one skill that you can develop, that's already going to help you. The second tip, because you get two for the price of one here, is that nothing gives you more power in the negotiation than the ability and willingness to walk away. If you feel like you need the deal, you're trapped. If you realize that you can walk away and psychologically condition yourself to walk away under some circumstances, you have a lot of power in that negotiation. So those would be my two tips. Listen, stay silent, and walk away if you need to. In terms of reaching me, you can reach me on my website. It's negotiatingtable.com, where negotiating table is all one word. You can email me, Moshe, Moshe, at negotiatingtable.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Just go to LinkedIn and look for Moshe, Moshe, and the word negotiation, and I pop right up.
That's fantastic. I sincerely appreciate your time. First of all, educating me, helping me. I'm an introvert as well, and negotiation has never come easy. On the other hand, you've kind of renewed my thoughts about, well, it may not be that I'm bad at it. I just haven't evolved that muscle or that skill to help get to what I need. So I really appreciate that. And also for your support. For those of you who are watching, we've been collaborating on the side and kind of helping each other with our brand and our business. So just thank you for being a great person. Thank you for this great conversation, and wishing you continued success. And thanks for joining Live Talk Media.
Thank you, Deb. Thanks for inviting me.
Be well.